Will Salah adjust his scheme to double D Hop, or will he let him whoop him like Julio did? Oh, hey, that's a good question. And Odell Beckham the year before that, right? And Devontae Adams the year before, the same year. That's been the issue with Robert Saleh. And it's like he's the opposite of Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick will never let someone's number one guy just destroy him. T.Y. Hilton in 2017. That was Saleh again. The Pete Carroll guys won't make usually any special accommodations to take away a guy's number one guy. They're just like, we're just going to take away explosives. We're going to play cover 3, which is a little bit of a prevent defense, and make you check it down and make you have 11 play drives. So in the Super Bowl, or, you'll have things where like Julian Edelman will catch 15 passes. Like, really, that was the only guy you needed to stop, and you let him catch 15 passes. It's like, yeah, but he only had 100 yards. It's like, okay, but he kept moving the chains. There's the only guy you had to cover. You couldn't cover him. So that's the thing with Robert Saleh. He goes into games and he'll get beat by one guy, Julio Jones last year. So that's a good question. But this year they have a new defensive backs coach, Tony Oden. And from what I saw in camp, there was a much more of an emphasis on man-to-man coverage, especially on passing downs. Not necessarily 1st and 10. Not necessarily then. But 2nd and long, 3rd down, a lot of man-to-man coverage. A lot of man-to-man coverage. So that to me means that, yes, if they're going man-to-man, they really don't have anyone who can cover DeAndre Hopkins one-on-one. So they'll, I would imagine, do some kind of doubling on him. They didn't show it to the media in camp. And that'll be something that they game plan in and probably install soon. But yes, I would think yes. Or he'd better. Because DeAndre Hopkins can do to the Niners what Julio Jones did to him last year. He really can, guys. And I think Saleh knows. Saleh's very smart. He does his best to stay one step ahead, just like Kyle Shanahan. He knows what DeAndre Hopkins is. He knows that's a new kind of threat in the league, in the division. And I think he wants to be ready for it. He adjusted to all the outside zone running in the NFC West, and it installed the wide 9, particularly for that reason. All the single back run games, particularly the Rams. I think he installed the wide 9 with the Rams in mind. The jet sweeps, the outside zone. Wide 9's perfect to stop that. So he's trying. I mean, he built that with the division rival in mind. I think he's now revamping the pass coverage with another division rival in mind. Good question. I love to hear more man coverage. Yeah, in theory, it's just that the Niners don't really have the corners to pull it off all the time. This is why every year I always say, hey, the Niners should take a corner in the first round. This year, C.J. Henderson, always, because it gives you the ability to play these coverages. That being said, the switch to this, and I've talked about it before, has really benefited Jaquiski Tartt. And I think Tartt could have the kind of jump this year that Fred Warner took last year. Like, Fred Warner was good as a rookie, and he was impressive. Like, the best thing about Fred Warner as a rookie was the fact that he played 16 games and understood the entire defense and was the middle linebacker, which means he had to call the plays, which he didn't do in college. So he, like, all the mental stuff he did showed that he was very mature and smart. But as a linebacker, like, he kind of got dragged around a little bit. He didn't make a lot of stops behind the line of scrimmage. He didn't seem like a biggest playmaker. And then he comes in year 2 and becomes a flat-out stud playmaker against the pass, against the run, one of the best linebackers in the league. Is Tartt going to become one of the best strong safeties in the league? I don't know. But I think he's going to go from a guy who kind of was like doing his job, but not instinctual enough to actually be making plays. Saleh talked about it. Like, there are rules to playing cover 3 in his defense. And if you follow the rules to a T, you don't play it well enough because you don't cheat to make plays when you can. And Sherman does, Tartt doesn't. So the fact Tartt's just a really good athlete, and he doesn't have that kind of experience in this defense. And he got to it late in his career. So just the fact that he can just line up right in a tight end's face, like Jordan Reed or who, Tyler Higbee with the Rams, or Greg Olsen. He can cover Greg Olsen. It's going to be great covering Greg Olsen. Line up right in his face, bump and run coverage, chase him wherever he goes down the field. He's a better athlete than Greg Olsen, better athlete than Tyler Higbee. He's really going to have he led the starting defense in pass breakups in training camp, more than Fred Warner. And Fred Warner only missed 2 practices. And Tart was leading it before Warner went down. So good point about man coverage, and I think you're going to see Tart really blossom because of it. What was Grant's last game you went to that you actually rooted for an NFL team? I actually never went to games when I rooted. My dad was a writer. He didn't have tickets. He wasn't taking me to the press box. I watched from home. True. How different would the Super Bowl have been if their wrinkle was Tart guarding Kelsey in man? Oh, man. I mean, look, we can talk about it, but the way I remember it was Saleh put Sherman on Kelsey and man, which I think was clever because I don't think Sherman was fast enough to cover any of the Chiefs wide receivers man to man. He covered Watkins like one play and got burned. So to me, like what the Chiefs like to do is put Kelsey on one side, split out by himself. The 3-4-3 wide receivers on the other side, bunched up or split out, and a running back in the backfield. I wouldn't feel comfortable with Sherman covering Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, or Sammy Watkins. I think I would have done the same thing and put him on Travis Kelce because I think he actually did a good job against Kelce in that game. So yeah, I mean, you'd love to put Tart on him, and ideally you would. I think Tart would have done a better job on Kelce than Sherman would have. But what do you do with Sherman? You know, that's the problem. Do you not play Sherman in the Super Bowl? Sherman is tough. So that's a good question. Good question. Tart would have done better, but Sherman couldn't have done anything else. Sherman's limited. He's great at what he does. Is this the year Sherm loses a step? I think he lost a step. He lost a step years ago. The reason he's still in the league is because of how smart he is and how long he's been playing the same system, the same coverages. Tart doesn't have a feel for it. Sherman knows when he can kind of break the rules of what he's supposed to do and jump routes and pick passes off. He knows offense is better than most of the 23, 24-year-old wide receivers he's covering. No, I mean, he's just way smarter. Like he's what Saleh says is like he's like Tom Brady. You know, Tom Brady's 43. He's not winning with athleticism, but he hasn't been for a long time. That being said, the Niners are going to be using more man-to-man coverage this year, and that does not bode well for Richard Sherman. It just doesn't. So if that's what they're going to do, the fact that he's lost a step could become much more evident this year than it was in the past. Remember, his first OTA practice, he gave up a long catch to Marquise Goodwin, and it went viral. It was on TV. I mean, it was on the internet, and it got picked up by ESPN. That was man-to-man coverage. It was bump and run coverage. That's what happens if he tries to bump and run. If he tries bump and run coverage against a 4-3 receiver and misses and whiffs off the bat. And what the league figured out last year is when he's in those situations, if you give him a hard jab step to the sideline, he's going to freak because he's going to read it as fade route up the sideline, and he's not fast enough. So he's going to try to jam that right away. So Davante Adams did it. Sammy Watkins did it. Hard jab step to the outside. Come back to the inside and take an inside release straight up the field. And both times, if you watch it, when Adams did it, when Watkins did it, Sherman spun in a circle because he'd sold out to stop the initial move to the sideline, and then was in no position to stop and redirect. So he actually had to turn and find the guy, and he was done. So that's out there. Every team knows you can do that to Sherman. He's going to have to adjust. It'll be interesting to see because he's one of the main reasons the Niners can't use man coverage more often. So his deficiencies may show up more often.